Okay, we're doing our next interview here at the Pasadena Book Fair. It's February 2014, and the book fair is sponsored by the Southern California chapter of ABAA. And we're now going to talk to Jerry Jacobs of Lost Horizon Books. Jerry, welcome. And as I ask all of the people we interview, tell us something about your background, family, schools, where you grew up, siblings, etc.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Florida, there were not a lot of bookshops, and I put myself through college, but I really hadn't planned to go to college until I was almost out of high school, so I had a lot of makeup to do, and I studied social psychology. Again, was not a bookish thing, but I read a lot, and I read, it was the 70s, and I was reading Vonnegut and Kerouac and the usual suspects, and so I just got more into books. And when I got out of school, I'd met my wife at that time, and I was going to go to graduate school, and I noticed that, you know, the higher you go up, the more narrow you study. And I enjoyed reading literature and history, a wide range of things. And I was always a collector. When I was 9, I had a paper route, and I collected coins. And, you know, I just liked books. And we decided this was the one field where you could read. The more you read, the better you would do, and it didn't have to be narrow. And my wife liked books, so we just started going to yard sales and collecting some books, and decided we'd eventually open a bookshop.
Tell me a little bit about your parents and siblings.
I have a brother and 2 sisters. They're not bookish. My brother a little more, but actually I came from a family that were very poor. There were no books in the house growing up. And I did like to read even, you know, at a fairly younger age, but really it was the year I got out of high school. I did leather work, and I owned a little leather shop with some friends of mine that sold other things. And next to us was a man who was a wood carver, and he said, you know, a book that I read like once a year is The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And he was an older guy. So I picked up The Hobbit and I read that. And that summer, I read The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. It was after that I decided I just really liked books. And that's when I really decided to go to college even.
Really?
Nobody in our family, my brother had gotten a scholarship to college, but I don't think my sisters finished high school. My parents certainly didn't. So it was...
Really? So basically, you might call yourself self-taught.
Yes, really, yeah.
What school, when you went to college, where did you go?
I went to Florida Atlantic in Boca Raton, Florida.
Yeah, I know the school.
Yeah, my brother went to Florida State. So
he was a Seminole.
Yes, and he's a diehard still.
Yeah, they usually are. They usually are.
And my wife is definitely the brains of our operation, and she came again from a family that really, you know, broken family, the things, and somehow we, you know, just...
How did you meet?
We met working in a restaurant.
What were you doing?
I was working as a waiter. This was when I first got, and she was working as a waitress, and then we went off. I had taken the restaurant thing. I was a maitre d'. I was a maitre d' in Harbor Springs, Michigan, and worked in the Antlers Room in Vail, Colorado, which was very fancy. You know, where you did all the tableside cooking and all of that. So I was, but again, we liked books, and we just decided we were going to work towards that, because book selling and just being around books, the longer you're at it, the better you should get.
Yeah.
And working in restaurants, the longer you're at it, the slower you get, the more beat up you get, and it's just not interesting. I'm still as excited today. We've had our shop now just celebrate our 30th anniversary with an open shop.
Great. Where is it? Where's your shop?
It's in Santa Barbara, California. Okay. And I can say that I'm as excited today as I was the first day we opened.
I feel.
And there's very few jobs that I can you can say that about, I think.
How long did you guys work in the restaurant before you decided to get out of there and go?
Well, I worked about 5 years or so in the restaurant before we did that.
And your wife worked?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah,
Okay, so now you've left the restaurant. Now what? Now what are you doing?
Well, we had a pickup truck that had a little camper on the back that we had drawers in the camper, we had hanging clothes, and that's how we had gone to Colorado. And that was an interesting story because when this was, Vail had only been around, this was in the 70s, and Vail had only been around about 15 years.
Yeah.
And Pepe Gramshammer was one of the founders of Vail. He was a famous skier, and the money guys,
Yeah.
he was the face of Vail. Well, that's where I worked. But we went there, and it was a summer, and we were staying in our van, and we worked in the evenings, but we would park on the bottom floor. They didn't have like a ticket thing. Nobody was keeping track of that. We'd park there, and I joined a membership at the athletic club. So I was playing racquetball with Ford's Secret Service guys and jacuzzi, Then we'd go to work. When we got off work, you don't drive in Vail. It's about a mile, and it's all walking, pedestrian. We'd come back from work, get in our pickup truck. You couldn't tell it was a camper. It's not like a big camper. It looked like a workman's truck, really. We'd drive it up to the top floor, open the windows, sleep there, get up in the morning, go get some coffee, come back, read for an hour, go down, play. The athletic club was right next to us. We'd go in, and we did that all summer, and my wife had a problem with her ankle. She needed an operation, and I had a friend who worked in a hospital in San Diego, and I knew San Diego from the past. So we left Vail and went there, and I met Ralph Cook. He dealt in beat literature back quite a while ago. And we became friends with him, and we traveled up to Santa Barbara, and that's where we decided we wanted to have our shop, and we did that. We've been married 35 years, and my oldest daughter is a photographer. She lives in the Ukraine, in Kiev. She's married.
That's where my mother comes from, Kiev.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter is about 2 blocks from all of the action, but she says you'd never even know it if you're not right. If you're not right there,
right in the center, you don't know.
She and her husband teach in the American schools, and they've been there about 3 years or so. And she's a photographer, but she's teaching high school art. And my youngest daughter just got accepted to Ohio State for a full ride for a PhD.
Oh, great!
And folklore and English. And
well, that's not going to help you.
Well, she got a full ride. That helps me.
That helps
She
you.
went to Scripps in Claremont. So my oldest daughter went to Brooks Photography. So I'm seeing this as a very good thing. But they both grew up in our bookshop. My oldest daughter was born about a year after we opened.
When did you open?
We opened in 1983.
In Santa Barbara?
In Santa Barbara. We're in the same location. We had a crib, and so the first 3 years of my oldest daughter's life, she lived in the crib, and then when she went to preschool, so my kids grew up with us always around. We never had to put them in daycare or anything, and they were around the shop and made friends with a lot of our customers on their own.
Yeah.
In the sense that a lot of people we know that my daughter's still friends with, I kind of liked that they made friends on their own, because people come in, there's the crib, and the kids are in the. So when my youngest daughter was born, about 5 or 6 years after that, we got the crib out, and she spent the first 3 years of her life in the crib. And as she said, when we weren't, ecstatic maybe that she was going to study English, and she goes, well, that's what you get, you had me grow up in the bookshop. But she always collected books on fairies and folklore and stuff like that, so that's what she's going to study.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So what was the year that you opened the shop?
1983.
Okay, and you said you've been in the same location. Well, are you a specialist or a generalist?
No, I'm a generalist, and I really admire some of the specialist dealers, the scholarliness of that. When I go into their booths and I see, and everything is so cogent, and it really. But I think there's a lot of different levels of this business.
Oh yeah.
And I think that, and I think for book collecting in the future, I think it's important that we get a lot of budding collectors coming in, or just young people. I sell a lot of books to young people to read, and who then maybe go on to be, serious book collectors. But those same people, are not going to come in contact with some of the higher end dealers and be intimidated to go in, and so I feel pretty good that we're sort of the starter kit for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we do turn up, being in Santa Barbara, and I do travel around the state. I do turn up some rare books, but I'm really a dealer's dealer too.
Yeah, pretty much.
I sell, I do sell, way over half my books to other book dealers who then, are sitting somewhere in New York City or whatever, and they may socialize with the people that buy the high end. There's a whole thing about that.
And strata.
And I'm glad. I mean, I have my people that call me, so I'm a little ways up the pecking order. But I think it's a good thing that they're the people selling to the ultimate customer. But I really I sell most of my better books really to the trade.
Yeah.
But having an open shop fits my person. You have to know yourself in this business. And don't try to be something you're not. I love the action. I mean, buying the books, of course, is the most fun.
Sure.
And my philosophy from the very beginning, I've never run an ad in the newspaper to sell books. I've only run my ads to buy books. Mm-hmm. And I've always felt that if you buy a good book, you will sell that book. The key is being able to buy that book, to pay enough. In a bidding situation, you pay enough to get the book, but then to buy it so that you still have room to sell the book. And that to me is a knack that you have to have if at a certain level. And there are the guys who just, are very scholarly and know each point, and they can find the ultimate customer at. But I'm pretty happy with where I'm at.
What was the first book fair, ABAA book fair, that you did?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure if I remember exactly.
We only ask good questions.
Yeah. Well, I had worked for 2 years when I went to Santa Barbara. We had collected books to open a bookshop, and we'd saved our money. And when we came to Santa Barbara, when you're not working, we were looking for a space, and we started going through our savings. So I worked for a rare book dealer for 2 years.
Ooh.
And I worked for Stephen Acronico, who had bought the bookshop a year before that from Milton Hammer Rare Books. Milton Hammer had been in business for about a dozen years or so, and Steve bought his bookshop. So I did a couple of fairs with him, and I'm not sure if I remember. I suspect we only do West Coast fairs, so obviously it was
either San Francisco or Los Angeles.
But I don't remember which was my first fair. And
do you remember around when?
Yeah, we got in the ABA about 25 years. We'd been in business for about 5 years, and we're friends with Kenneth Carmiel. Ken
Was
Carmiel.
he your sponsor?
He was my main sponsor, and Ken had back then you had to be in business for 3 years. I think it's more now.
I think it's 4.
Yeah. Well, so after we had been in business for about 3 years, Ken said, I'll sponsor you if you like, and you should do this. It's a good thing. And Ken, I mean, he's a very sharp guy. But I didn't feel I was really ready. So I kind of dragged my feet. And then about a year or so after that, or maybe it might have been 2, but he just called me one day and said, I want to sponsor you, but a lot of people, he's a very well-known guy, he says a lot of people are asking me to sponsor them, and I can only sponsor, I think, two a year or something. He says, and so I want to sponsor you, so do it now. And that got me moving, and he was my main sponsor. And we started doing the fairs immediately after that. We had the material even at the time, so we started doing the fair as soon as I got in the ABA. So it's been about 25 years.
What's your internet presence?
Well, not that strong. We really don't put a lot of books online. What I do tend to put online are books that, let's say it's from Maine or some. I'll put that on because I know it's for a certain part of the world, or a little catalog or something that to me is a $20 catalog of art. I'm pretty strong in art books, but online the cheapest one might be $75.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to price that book $75 in my shop because it creates too much wonder as why is this. So I'm better to put a book like that online. But really, we have a website and we've put a few things on. But I love the interaction with people. And we sell a lot of books. For a tiny shop, we're only about 700 square feet. We sell a lot of books, and it's mostly to people in the shop or people calling and not being online. Interestingly enough, I know booksellers don't travel like they used to.
No.
However, the big dealers do come into my shop, and I get Palm Harrington once a year. And people will make the effort to come into my shop because they know all my books are not online.
Uh-huh.
And
That's important.
We did a lot of business between having a fair in San Francisco and then the fair in LA.
Did you do both?
No.
You
no,
did.
we only do one fair a year, and it's the West Coast, and it's just the ABAA fair. And I enjoy going back and forth. And I love this venue here because
It's very nice.
I like Pasadena. I like the convenience of the hotel, and I feel that I get enough rare books throughout the year that I can make a decent showing at a good book fair. But I sell everything that I found within the year to the trade, and that's enough. We do well.
Do you buy much from people bringing stuff into the shop?
Yes.
Is that what you would say was probably, would you say it's your mainstream of acquisitions?
Yeah, I do buy some things from dealers. Like at the show here, I sort of have a pretty good little specialty thing of Santa Barbara, so people know, and they'll put stuff aside me of Santa Barbara. I've gone more and more into posters, and I've always liked original art, and so here I have like Henry Miller watercolors with me. I have a Urte watercolor, Kenneth Rexroth art, and I'll buy that from other dealers because it's just a little bit out of their thing.
Right.
But really, I buy. I'm fairly well connected with some of the better estate people, and I
That's
buy.
important.
I do have some books coming through the door, but I would say the real key is that I'm connected with there's a number of estate people that I am their book guy.
Oh,
But
important.
that means, if they were to call me and say, I'm at a house and I need you here now, I will actually lock my door and close and go there. I mean, I am, I'm their book guy, but it's also because they feel they can trust me to tell them what's what.
Absolutely.
They can sell me better books, and then they can put everything else in their sale for $2 a book. So it's symbiotic. It works together, and that's what you need. But that's been my lucky thing. I have even people now calling me from San Diego, LA, that just like the fact that I will come. I don't take anything on consignment.
Okay.
I pay it up front, right? I own everything I have in my shop, and I have one little painting that I took as a favor for somebody, but basically I own everything, and I write the check on the spot, and that's also, I think, an important.
I think that's important.
It's a way to do it. I mean, I do see that people, take things on consignment, and then they can just kind of take their time and do it. But for me, it's worked. If I know I own something and I know what I paid, I have no employees, and I have a small shop, even though I do pretty good business out of it. So I've kept my overhead down and my money is put into books. But if I buy something, I remember I was selling to a book dealer and everything seemed to be, they were buying some posters from me and art and stuff, and everything was $1,200. And so the guy said, everything today is $1,200. I said, yeah, because I'm offering you things that I paid $1,000 for, and I know I'm making a profit.
Wow.
And obviously, I don't pay that percentage on everything, or I'd be out of business. Yeah. But I know what I'm into for each thing, and without having employees and a large overhead, I can actually think that close on what I'm doing. And
just you and your wife?
Yeah, and my wife's a painter, and she's fairly well known in Santa Barbara. She didn't pick up a paintbrush until she was 40, but she's actually come on very quick. She's in the best gallery in town, and she needs as much studio time as possible. So she works a couple of days a week, and I work the rest. But we have a great lifestyle. I ride my bike to work most days. I play softball a couple of mornings. And a couple of evenings, and we feel pretty fortunate. We have a pretty nice lifestyle. My wife gets up in her studio and paints a lot.
Yeah, the thing is that you live in an area where the climate is conducive to doing that kind of thing, as opposed to people like myself who live in the Northeast, where, you know, if you want to bike during the snow, you take your life in your hands.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. So
I'm not much for cold weather anyway. But
well, I'm not either, but I live there.
Well, I grew up in Florida, so the logical place for me was to stay.
Would you retire someday back to Florida?
No,
you
not
stay
if
here
I want to stay married.
Really?
My wife was born in Florida, and we did go back there recently to see my family, and we had an excellent, beautiful vacation, went around the state. But no, culturally, that's the thing is, really, there weren't any bookshops growing up. I remember the first time I came to California, I went into Cherokee Bookshop on Hollywood Boulevard, back in the days when there was a Cherokee. And this was before I was in the business, and I went and I was just staggered. I remember looking around the shelves and going, oh my gosh, this is a whole different world. This is like someone coming from my wife grew up in the middle of the state, literally, the swampland in Florida, and so this was a whole different world for us, and we just took to it and really like it. So
it's good. Before I let you go, I've got a couple of more questions to ask you. Talk a little bit about some of the booksellers, dead or alive, who have been an influence on you or a mentor to you as a young bookseller.
I would say the most prominent in my mind would be Ken Carmiel. He's someone. And I think he mentors a lot of people.
I think he enjoys it.
Whether or not they even realize it, or if he even realizes he's doing it. But he has effect on people because, so professional, so knowledgeable. But he will share his. He'll share his knowledge. He'll share his time. He will still. My youngest daughter was going to try to come tomorrow, and she may come. And one of the reasons she says, "Oh, I should come to the book show." And of course, she loves books. She has a great library of her own. But she mentioned, "Oh, and I'll see Ken will be there, right? I'll see Ken." So he influenced a lot of people. But me, I really looked at how he did his business also.
His model.
And I looked at he's much more scholarly than me, and he deals in early books, and I have a lot of art books and architecture and photography, but I have an open shop, and that's the kind of thing people are looking for. But he's influenced me of just seeing how he does business, how he treats other dealers, and I would think that I'm kind of a dealer's dealer, and I think it's a little bit because of Ken.
Yeah.
Who are other people? Gosh, they're not always people that are big name. I mean, I do sell, obviously, to some of the big dealers in the business, but Lou Weinstein was always good to us. He would come to Santa Barbara, and I was a shop he'd come into, and he
flattering?
Huh?
Were you flattered?
Oh, for me, it's not a matter of flattered. He spent good money for me. and
the bottom line man.
Yeah. Well, but I can say that with Lou, he would agree with me, and that's why he didn't just come by my shop to chat. I mean, Lou was like a hurricane. I mean, Tasmanian devil is kind of what I would call him. But it was mutually beneficial, but also mutually satisfying. He really was a friend also.
He's a voracious scout.
And you know, he made the effort to come into my shop, which is what I liked. But I made the effort to make it worthwhile to him.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
important.
he's someone that influenced us with his positive attitude, you know, about the business, but just his positive attitude about life. But some of the people that have influenced me are not like booksellers we'd know. I was just talking to someone about my friend D.G. Wills in La Jolla, who has a general bookshop and deals in scholarly books, but not antiquarian. And I was telling someone how I used to, I've known Dennis since before I opened my shop. And I would go to his shop and I'd bring my sleeping bag and we'd go out and we'd shoot pool and drink beer or whatever. We'd come back to the shop and he'd close it up and I would sleep on the floor of his shop in a sleeping bag, but until about 1 or 2 in the morning I would be scouting and just piling books.
Yeah.
And he'd come in the morning, we'd go have breakfast, but before we'd do that, we'd start adding up everything I bought, and I still see Dennis, he's still got a shop, and it was just fun. And to me, the business, it has to be fun. I could actually kind of retire financially now probably, and my needs and wants are pretty simple. If I allow my wife to be in her studio, she's happy, and I play softball and I'm happy, but it's still fun. And if it keeps going that way, I plan to stay with it, and it seems that would be the case. But dealing with some of the people I've dealt with, like my friend Dennis, just made it fun, and does make it fun.
I think that's one of the things I've always said to people at the book school, that if you're not having fun, maybe you should look someplace else.
Yeah.
On that note, we have come to the end of our session.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
It goes quickly.